The warning alarm screamed through the small ship as red lights flashed in every corner. Commander Hyunwoo Park gripped his seat and watched the stars blur past the main window. Behind him, his daughter So-young worked fast at her computer station. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls as she tried to fix their broken navigation system. "Dad, the jump drive is failing," So-young called out over the noise. "We have maybe 10 minutes before it shuts down completely." Hyunwoo nodded and turned to their pilot. Captain Tae-min Lee sat in the front chair, sweat running down his face as he fought to keep their ship moving. The man had been like family to them for years. Now he was their only hope of escape. "Tae-min, what are our options?" Hyunwoo asked. "Not good, Commander," Tae-min replied. "Those coalition ships are still following us. They will catch us in about 20 minutes if we stay on this course." So-young looked up from her station. "What about that planet we passed? The one marked as dangerous in the old Earth records?" Hyunwoo shook his head. "Kepler 442c? The reports say nothing can live there. It would be suicide." "Better than letting the coalition kill us," So-young said. "At least on a planet we might have a chance." 3 months ago, Earth had been their home. Hyunwoo remembered the blue skies and green forests where So-young had grown up. He remembered her mother's garden and the small house where they lived peacefully. But that was before the coalition came. The alien empire had arrived without warning. Their massive ships filled the sky above every major city on Earth. At first, the aliens said they came in peace. They wanted to trade and share knowledge. But within weeks, the truth became clear. The coalition saw humans as a disease that needed to be removed from the galaxy. The war lasted only 6 months. Earth's defenses were no match for weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. Hyunwoo had been a commander in Earth's military. He led evacuation ships trying to save as many people as possible. But for every ship that escaped, 10 more were destroyed. On the last day, Hyunwoo found So-young at the university where she worked. She had been studying alien life forms, hoping to understand the species that might exist among the stars. Instead, she learned how cruel some of those species could be. "We have to go now," he had told her that day. Tae-min is waiting with a ship. She had grabbed only her research files and a picture of her mother. Everything else was left behind as their world burned. Now they flew through space with coalition hunters close behind. The enemy ships were faster and stronger. Their only advantage was that Tae-min knew how to hide in asteroid fields and use old smuggling routes. "Commander, I'm picking up more coalition signals," Tae-min reported. "They've called in reinforcements, at least 6 ships now." So-young's computer beeped with new information. "Dad, I've been studying the data about Kepler 442c. The planet has 2 suns and very hot days. The atmosphere is breathable but dangerous. There are massive storms and unknown life forms." "Unknown life forms could mean anything," Hyunwoo said. "They might be worse than the coalition. Or they might not care about galactic politics." So-young replied. "The coalition marked this planet as worthless. They won't waste time looking for us there." Behind them, energy blasts lit up the darkness. The coalition ships had found their trail again. "They're firing," Tae-min shouted. "Shields are down to 60%. Hyunwoo looked at his daughter. At 22 years old, she was brilliant and brave. She had her mother's kind heart and his stubborn will to never give up. He could not let the coalition take her. "Set course. For Kepler 442c, he ordered. Tae-min's hands moved over his controls. "Jumping in 30 seconds, this is going to be rough." The ship shook as more energy blasts hit their rear shields. Through the window, Hyunwoo could see the coalition vessels getting closer. Their dark ships looked like insects with glowing red eyes. 10 seconds, Tae-min called out. "Dad," So-young said quietly. "What if we're making a mistake?" Hyunwoo reached over and took her hand. "Sometimes the only choice is between certain death and possible survival. We choose to survive." The stars disappeared as their ship entered hyperspace. For a few seconds, everything was quiet and peaceful. Then the alarm started again. "Jump drive is critical," Tae-min reported. "We'll drop out of hyperspace in 5 minutes whether we want to or not." "Will we reach the planet?" So-young asked. "Maybe, if we're lucky." The minutes passed slowly. Hyunwoo watched the readings on his screen and tried not to think about what would happen if they dropped out of hyperspace in empty space. The Coalition would find them easily. "Dropping out now," Taemin announced. The stars returned. In front of them, a red and orange planet grew larger on their screen. 2 bright suns hung in the dark sky beyond it. "We made it," So Young whispered, but their relief lasted only seconds. New alarms began screaming. "Coalition ships," Taemin said. "They followed us through the jump, 3 of them." "How is that possible?" Hyunwoo demanded. "They must have locked." "Onto our ship's energy signature," So Young explained. "They tracked us through hyperspace. The enemy ships appeared behind them like hunting wolves. Energy blasts began filling the space around their small vessel. "I'm taking us into the atmosphere," Taemin said. "It's our only chance. The ship won't survive atmospheric entry with this much damage," So Young warned. "We won't survive up here either," Taemin replied. Their ship dove toward the planet's surface. The hull began to glow red-hot as they hit the upper atmosphere. Behind them, the Coalition ships followed, their weapons creating a deadly light show. "Shields are gone," Taemin reported. "Hull temperature is critical." "There," So Young pointed at her screen. "A flat area between those mountains. Can you reach it?" "I'll try." More energy blast hit their ship. The rear section exploded in flames. Warning lights covered every surface. "We're going down," Taemin said calmly. "Prepare for crash landing." Hyunwoo strapped himself in tighter and watched his daughter do the same. Through the window, the planet's surface rushed up to meet them. He could see red sand, strange rock formations, and something that might have been ruins in the distance. "Whatever happens," he told So Young, "we stay together." She nodded, her face pale but determined. The ship hit the ground hard. Metal screamed against rock as they skidded across the desert surface. Hyunwoo felt his safety straps cut into his chest. Equipment flew through the cabin as their vessel rolled and bounced. Finally, everything stopped. Smoke filled the cabin. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls. Hyunwoo unbuckled himself and looked around. "So Young? Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," she replied, though her voice shook. "Taemin?" Their pilot did not answer. Hyunwoo crawled forward and found his friend slumped over the controls. Blood covered the instrument panel. "Is he alive?" So Young asked. Hyunwoo checked for a pulse but found none. Taemin had given his life to get them to safety. Now they were alone on an alien world, with no way home. Outside, the wind howled across the desert. In the distance, strange sounds echoed through the air. They were not alone on this planet. The morning heat hit them like a wall of fire as Hyunwoo and So Young crawled out of their crashed ship. 2 suns hung in the orange sky, making the red sand shimmer like water. The air tasted of metal and something else they could not name. "We need to gather supplies quickly," Hyunwoo said, wiping sweat from his face. "This heat will kill us if we stay in the open too long." So Young nodded and pointed to a line of strange rock formations in the distance. "Those look like caves. We might find shelter there." They worked fast to collect everything useful from the wreckage. Emergency food packs, water containers, medical supplies, and a damaged communication device. Hyunwoo also found 2 energy pistols and some basic tools. It was not much for survival on an alien world. As they prepared to leave, So Young stopped and stared at something near their feet. "Dad, look at this." The sand around the ship was moving, not blown by wind but moving on its own. Small grains flowed together like tiny rivers, forming patterns that almost looked like symbols. "The sand is alive," So Young whispered. Hyunwoo grabbed her arm and pulled her back. "We need to move, now." They hurried across the desert toward the rock formations. The heavy packs made walking difficult in the loose sand. Behind them, more sand began to move and flow around their crashed ship. After an hour of walking, they heard a sound that made them freeze. It was like a cross between a roar and a whistle coming from somewhere ahead of them. "What was that?" So Young asked. "Nothing good," Hyunwoo replied. He pulled out one of the energy pistols and checked its charge level. The sound came again, closer this time. Then they saw movement among the rocks. Something large and fast was coming toward them. The creature that appeared was like nothing they had ever seen. It stood on 4 legs like a horse, but its body was covered in hard scales that gleamed like metal. Its long neck ended in a head, filled with sharp teeth. Most strange of all, it had 4 arms that ended in clawed hands. Kethvar, So Young breathed, remembering something from her alien studies. I think that's what they call themselves. The creature stopped about 50 meters away and studied them. Its large yellow eyes moved from Hyunwoo to So Young and back again. It made a series of clicking sounds that might have been language. I don't think it's alone, Hyunwoo said quietly. He was right. More shapes moved among the rocks. Soon, they were surrounded by 6 of the creatures. Each one carried weapons that looked like spears with glowing points. The largest of the creatures stepped forward. It was bigger than the others, with scars across its armored hide. When it spoke, the clicking sounds came faster and louder. I think it's trying to communicate, So Young said. Maybe we can... The creature suddenly charged forward, its spear aimed at Hyunwoo's chest. He dove to the side and rolled behind a rock. The spear hit the stone and sent sparks flying. So much for communication, he muttered. More spears flew through the air. Hyunwoo fired his energy pistol at the nearest creature. The blast hit its armor and barely left a mark. These beings were built for war. The caves, So Young shouted. We have to reach the caves. They ran between the rock formations as spears whistled past their heads. The creatures followed, their 4 legs carrying them easily over the rough ground. Their clicking calls echoed off the stone walls. Hyunwoo and So Young found a narrow opening between 2 large rocks. They squeezed through just as the creatures reached them. Clawed hands scraped against stone as the aliens tried to follow. Inside the cave, everything was different. The air was cooler and filled with a soft blue light. The walls were covered with crystals that glowed like stars. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. It's beautiful, So Young said. And hopefully safe, Hyunwoo added. They moved deeper into the cave system. The blue light came from thousands of small crystals embedded in the walls and ceiling. Some were no bigger than a fingernail. Others were as large as a person's head. These crystals are amazing, So Young said, examining one closely. They seem to store and release energy, like natural batteries. As they walked, they began to hear a buzzing sound. It grew louder as they went deeper into the caves. What now? Hyunwoo asked. They found out quickly. The buzzing came from swarms of insects that lived among the crystals. Each insect was about the size of a thumb and glowed with the same blue light as the crystals. Luminari, So Young said, using a word from her studies. Lightbringers. The insects did not seem dangerous at first. They flew in beautiful patterns around the cavern, creating streams of blue light. But when Hyunwoo accidentally brushed against one, it stung him through his shirt. They're not just pretty, he said, rubbing the burning spot on his arm. So Young watched the insects more carefully. I think they're protecting the crystals. Look how they stay close to the walls. They found a large chamber where they could rest without disturbing too many of the Luminari. Hyunwoo set up a small camp while So Young studied their new environment. Dad, these caves go on for kilometers, she reported after exploring nearby passages. We could hide here for weeks if we need to. What about food and water? There's water dripping from the ceiling in several places. As for food, she pointed to some strange plants growing near the cave entrance. I'll need to test these carefully. Outside, they could still hear the clicking calls of the Kethvar. The creatures had not given up their hunt. Why did they attack us? So Young asked. Maybe they thought we were invaders, Hyunwoo replied. Or maybe they attack anything they don't understand. As the day passed, they learned more about their new home. The crystals responded to touch and movement, growing brighter when disturbed. The Luminari followed patterns that changed with the position of the 2 suns, and the Kethvar kept watch outside, waiting for them to emerge. We can't stay in here forever, Hyunwoo said. Maybe we don't have to fight them, So Young suggested. These creatures are intelligent. They use tools and weapons. There might be a way to communicate. Or they might just be better at killing than we thought. Their conversation was interrupted by new sounds from outside. Not the clicking of the Kethvar, but something different. Sounds of conflict. They crept to the cave entrance and looked out. The Kethvar who had been hunting them were now fighting with something else. In the distance, more Kethvar approached. But these new ones looked different. Their armor was darker, and their weapons glowed red instead of blue. Two different groups, So Young observed. The fighting was fierce, but brief. The newcomers were larger and better armed. They drove off the first group with what looked like energy nets and stunning weapons. When the battle ended, one of the new Kethvar approached the cave entrance. This one moved differently than the others. It walked slower, favoring its left, rear leg. Dark fluid that might have been blood dripped from wounds on its side. The creature stopped near the cave and made soft clicking sounds. Not the harsh calls of the earlier attackers, but something that sounded almost like a request. "It's hurt," So Young said. "It needs help." "It might be a trick," Hyunwoo warned. The wounded Kethvar collapsed near the cave entrance. Its breathing was harsh and quick. Without thinking, So Young grabbed the medical supplies and ran outside. "So Young, no," Hyunwoo called, but she was already kneeling beside the injured creature. The Kethvar's eyes opened as she approached. For a moment, Hyunwoo expected it to attack his daughter. Instead, it made quiet, clicking sounds and remained still as she examined its wounds. "The injuries are serious but not fatal," she called back to her father. "I can help if it lets me." The creature seemed to understand. It turned its head to watch her work, but made no threatening moves. So Young cleaned the wounds and applied healing gel from their medical kit. As she worked, other Kethvar emerged from hiding places among the rocks. They watched silently as the human female helped their injured companion. "I think," So Young said quietly, "we just made our first friend on this planet." The wounded Kethvar made a sound that might have been gratitude. In the distance, the twin suns began to set, painting the desert in shades of red and gold. But as darkness fell, new sounds echoed across the landscape. Howls and screams that spoke of dangers worse than anything they had faced so far. The real predators of this world were just waking up. The wounded Kethvar stayed near their cave for 3 days. During that time, So Young learned that the creature's name was Veltar. He could not speak human words, but he understood some of what they said. More importantly, he began teaching them about his world. Through gestures and simple drawings in the sand, Veltar showed them the dangers of Kepler 442c, the shifting sands that could swallow a person whole, the plants that shot poisonous darts at anything that moved, the storms that came when both suns were high in the sky, bringing acid rain that could melt metal. "This planet is trying to kill everything on it," Hyunwoo observed. But Veltar also showed them how to survive, which plants were safe to eat, where to find clean water, how to read the signs that warned of approaching storms. Most important of all, he taught them about his people. The Kethvar lived by a code of honor that governed everything they did. Strength was respected above all else, but so was courage in the face of impossible odds. They fought ritual battles to settle disputes. They protected their territory with their lives, and they never forgot a debt of honor. "By helping him, you created a bond," Hyunwoo told his daughter. "He owes you his life." So Young was more interested in learning about Kethvar society. "They're not just warriors," she explained after another communication session with Veltar. "They have art, music, and complex social structures. They're more like us than we thought." On the 4th day, Veltar was strong enough to travel. He made it clear that the humans should come with him. His clan needed to see the Skyfallen ones, who had shown mercy to their enemies. "It might be our only chance to make peace," So Young argued. Hyunwoo was less optimistic. "Or it might be walking into a trap." But they had little choice. Their supplies were running low, and the cave was not a permanent solution. If they were going to survive on this world, they needed allies. Veltar led them through a maze of canyons and rock formations. Along the way, He continued teaching them about the planet's dangers. He showed them the tracks of creatures called earthshakers, massive worms that lived underground and created sinkholes without warning. "Stay on the hard rock," he seemed to say through his gestures. "The soft ground is death." They also learned about the night wraiths. These were beings of pure energy that appeared when the planet's brief night fell. They could pass through solid matter and fed on the life force of living creatures. "The crystals in the caves protect against them," So Young translated from Veltar's clicking speech. "That's why his people sometimes live underground." As they traveled, they passed other Kethvar settlements. Each one was built around natural defenses, cliff faces, crystal formations, or deep canyons. The buildings were made of the same metal-like scales that covered the Kethvar themselves, shaped and molded like clay. The other Kethvar watched the humans with curiosity and suspicion. Some made aggressive gestures until Veltar clicked sharp commands at them. Others simply stared as if they had never seen creatures like Hyunwoo and So Young before. "We're probably the first humans they've ever encountered," So Young realized. After 2 days of travel, they reached Veltar's home settlement. It was built into the side of a mountain, with narrow bridges connecting different levels. Hundreds of Kethvar lived here, from tiny younglings no bigger than a house cat to ancient elders whose scales had turned silver with age. The arrival of the humans caused great excitement. Crowds gathered to see the strange two-legged creatures who had helped one of their warriors. The clicking and whistling of their conversations created a constant background noise. Veltar led them to the center of the settlement, where a massive Kethvar waited. This one was bigger than any they had seen, with battle scars covering his hide and weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "Huntmaster Cordin," Veltar said in his clicking language, and then gestured to the humans. Cordin studied Hyunwoo, and So Young with intelligent yellow eyes. When he spoke, his voice was deeper than Veltar's, and his words carried the weight of absolute authority. "He wants to know why we're here," So Young said, trying to follow the conversation. Veltar began telling the story of his rescue. He showed his healed wounds and gestured to So Young repeatedly. Other Kethvar joined the discussion, their voices rising and falling like music, but not all of them seemed pleased. A group of younger warriors made aggressive sounds and pointed their weapons at the humans. Cordin clicked sharp commands that made them step back, but their hostility was clear. "What's happening?" Hyunwoo asked. So Young listened carefully to the alien conversation. "I think there's disagreement about what to do with us. Some want to welcome us as friends of Veltar. Others see us as invaders who should be killed." Cordin raised one of his forearms and all conversation stopped. He spoke directly to Hyunwoo, his meaning clear even without translation. "Challenge," Veltar said in broken human words. "Honor combat." Hyunwoo felt his blood run cold. "He wants to fight me?" "It's their way," So Young explained quickly. "If you win, we're accepted into the clan. If you lose," she did not need to finish the sentence. Cordin gestured toward a circular area in the center of the settlement. It was clearly an arena, with seats carved into the surrounding rock walls. Hundreds of Kethvar began gathering to watch. "Dad, you don't have to do this," So Young said. "Actually, I think I do," Hyunwoo replied. "It's their law. If I refuse, we'll never be safe here." Veltar approached them with weapons, a sword that glowed with energy, and a shield that hummed with power. The weapons were made for Kethvar hands, but Hyunwoo could adapt. "These are hunting weapons," Veltar explained in his limited human words. Fair fight. As the sun reached its highest point, the challenge began. Hyunwoo stepped into the arena, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien eyes upon him. Cordin entered from the opposite side, moving with the fluid grace of a born warrior. The Huntmaster was bigger, stronger, and fighting with weapons he had used his entire life. But Hyunwoo had advantages too. His military training had taught him to adapt quickly to new situations. His smaller size made him a harder target. Most importantly, he was fighting for his daughter's life. The battle began with Cordin charging across the arena like a living tank. Hyunwoo rolled to the side, barely avoiding the glowing spear. The crowd roared their approval at the near miss. For the next several minutes, Hyunwoo could only dodge and retreat. Every time he tried to attack, Cordine's superior reach forced him back. The energy shield blocked his sword strikes, and the spear came dangerously close to ending the fight several times. But gradually, Hyunwoo began to understand his opponent's patterns. Cordine was skilled but predictable. He used the same combinations of attacks over and over. His four-legged stance was stable but not very mobile. Hyunwoo began to use the arena itself as a weapon. He led Cordine around obstacles, used elevation changes to his advantage, and kept the larger warrior turning and moving in ways that tired him. The crowd's mood began to shift. At first they had expected a quick victory for their huntmaster. Now they were seeing something they had never witnessed before, a small, weak-looking creature that refused to die. The turning point came when Cordine made a powerful thrust with his spear. Hyunwoo not only dodged but grabbed the weapon's shaft and used Cordine's own momentum to throw him off balance. For a moment, the mighty huntmaster stumbled. Hyunwoo pressed his advantage, landing several strikes on Cordine's armor. They did. No real damage, but they proved that the human could fight back. The battle continued for nearly an hour. Both fighters were exhausted, their movements slower and less precise. But Hyunwoo had learned something important. Cordine respected him. Now, the alien was no longer trying to end the fight quickly. He was testing the human's limits. Finally, both warriors stopped and faced each other across the arena. They were too tired to continue effectively. Cordine spoke in his clicking language, and the crowd fell silent. "What's he saying?" Hyunwoo asked, Veltar translated. "He says you fight with great heart, you are worthy enemy. The combat ends with honor to both." Cordine approached Hyunwoo and offered his hand in what seemed to be a gesture of respect. The human took it, and the arena erupted in clicking cheers. "We did it," So-young said, running to embrace her father. "We're safe now." But their celebration was interrupted by a new sound, the roar of engines high above. Looking up, they saw sleek shapes moving across the orange sky. Coalition ships had found their planet. The coalition ships circled overhead like metal vultures. Their dark hulls blocked out patches of sunlight as they conducted systematic sweeps of the planet's surface. In the HFY settlement, panic spread through the crowds. "They're scanning for our crashed ship," Hyunwoo said, watching the alien vessels through a gap in the rock ceiling. "Once they find it, they'll know we survived." Cordine approached them with Veltar translating. The huntmaster's words came fast and urgent. "He says his people have never seen flying machines like those," So-young explained. "He wants to know if these are your enemies." "Not just ours," Hyunwoo replied. "If the coalition finds us here, your entire people will be in danger." The truth of this became clear within hours. The coalition ships found the wreckage of the human vessel and began landing troops near the site. From their hiding place in the mountain settlement, the HFY watched through crystal viewing devices as alien soldiers spread across the desert. These coalition troops were different from the HFY. They wore powered armor that made them look like walking tanks. Their weapons could destroy rocks from hundreds of meters away. Worst of all, they moved with the cold efficiency of beings who had conquered dozens of worlds. "They'll kill everything on this planet if they think it might help humans," So-young said quietly. Some of the younger HFY warriors wanted to attack immediately. Their clicking voices grew loud and angry as they demanded action. But Cordine held them back with sharp commands. "What's he saying?" Hyunwoo asked. Veltar struggled with the translation. "He says, enemy is too strong. Need to learn their ways before fighting." This frustrated the young warriors even more. One of them, a scarred fighter named Torvald, stepped forward and challenged Cordine directly. His clicking speech was so rapid and angry that even Veltar had trouble following it. "Torvald says the huntmaster has grown weak," So-young translated. "He says hiding in caves while enemies walk on their land is shameful." Cordine's response was calm but firm. He gestured to the humans and then to the sky where coalition ships continued their patrols. "He's trying to explain that this is different from their usual fights," So-young said. "These enemies have weapons the HFY have never faced." But Torvald was not convinced. He drew his energy spear and pointed it at Hyunwoo. "Oh no," So Young breathed. "He's challenging Dad to combat. He thinks if he defeats you, it will prove the humans brought weakness to their people." The arena filled once again as word of the new challenge spread. But this time the mood was different. The Kethvar were divided. Some supported Cordon's cautious approach, while others backed Torvald's call for immediate action. "I don't have to accept," Hyunwoo said. "Actually, you do," Veltar explained in his broken human speech. "Torvald claims you brought danger to our home. You must prove your honor or be cast out." So Young grabbed her father's arm. "This is insane. You just fought one battle. You're exhausted." "The Kethvar don't see it that way," Hyunwoo replied. "In their culture, strength and courage are everything. If I back down now, we lose all the respect we earned." But as he prepared for combat, So Young noticed something the others had missed. The crystal formations throughout the settlement were glowing brighter than usual. The energy readings on her damaged scanner showed massive fluctuations. "Dad, wait," she called. "Something's happening to the planetary energy grid." Her words were lost in the roar of the crowd as the second challenge began. Torvald was younger and fresher than Cordon had been, but he was also more reckless. He attacked with wild fury, trying to end the fight quickly. Hyunwoo used this against him. The human had learned from his previous battle. He let Torvald wear himself out with aggressive attacks, then began to counter-strike at precise moments. The watching Kethvar grew quieter as the fight progressed. They could see that the human warrior was not just lucky or desperate. He was skilled, learning their combat style and adapting it to his own strengths. Meanwhile, So Young continued studying the energy readings. The planet's crystal network was responding to something. But what? Her answer came when the ground began to shake. Not the violent tremors of an earthshaker worm, but a deep, rhythmic pulse that seemed to come from the planet's core itself. In the arena, both fighters stopped and looked around in confusion. The Kethvar had never felt anything like this before. "The planet," So Young whispered. "It's waking up." Above them, the coalition ships seemed to notice the energy fluctuations, too. Their sensors were probably detecting the same readings that So Young's scanner showed. Whatever was happening, it was big enough to be seen from orbit. Torvald used the distraction to launch a final attack at Hyunwoo. But the human was ready. He caught the young Kethvar's spear with his shield and used his sword to knock his opponent to the ground. For a moment, Torvald lay stunned at Hyunwoo's feet. The human could have delivered a killing blow, ending the threat to his family's safety. Instead, he offered his hand to help his opponent stand. The gesture shocked the watching crowd into silence. Even Torvald stared at the extended hand in disbelief. "In our culture," Hyunwoo said, speaking slowly so Veltar could translate, "strength is not just about winning fights. It's about knowing when mercy is stronger than violence." Torvald took the offered hand and allowed himself to be helped up. When he spoke, his clicking voice was quieter and more respectful. "He says he understands now," So Young translated. "He asks for your forgiveness and offers to serve in the fight against the real enemy." But their moment of unity was shattered by new sounds from above. The coalition ships had stopped circling and were now descending toward the settlement. Their weapons began charging with deadly energy. "They've found us," Hyunwoo said. Cordon barked orders that sent Kethvar warriors running to defensive positions throughout the settlement, but their energy spears and traditional armor would be useless against coalition technology. "We need to evacuate everyone to the deeper caves," So Young said. "The crystal formations there might offer some protection." "No," Hyunwoo replied, studying the approaching ships. "Running won't solve this. The coalition will just keep hunting until they find us." He turned to address Cordon and the gathered Kethvar. Even though they could not understand his words, his meaning was clear. "We fight," he said. "Not just for humans, but for everyone who refuses to bow to the coalition's tyranny." Cordon's response needed no translation. The Huntmaster raised his spear high and let out a war cry that echoed through the settlement. Every Kethvar warrior answered with their own battle calls. The first coalition energy blasts struck the mountainside moments later. Rock and crystal exploded in showers of deadly fragments. The mountain settlement's ancient walls began to crack under the assault. "The communication device," So Young shouted over the noise. "If I can boost its signal with these crystals, I might be able to contact other human survivors." "Do it," Hyunwoo ordered. "We're going to need all the help we can get." As coalition troops began rappelling down from their ships, the Kethvar warriors took defensive positions among the familiar rocks and passages of their home. They might be outgunned, but they were fighting on ground they had known since childhood. Hyunwoo found himself standing beside Torval and Veltar as enemy soldiers approached their position. The three warriors who had been enemies an hour ago were now united against a common threat. "For honor," Veltar said in his broken human speech. "For freedom," Hyunwoo replied. The battle for Kepler 442c was about to begin. Above them, Coalition. General Thexmore watched the fighting from his command ship. He had expected to find a few human refugees hiding in caves. Instead, he faced an entire alien civilization that had chosen to protect those refugees. This was exactly the kind of problem the Coalition had been created to solve. Species that aided humanity were just as dangerous as humans themselves. They would all have to be eliminated. The general gave orders to prepare the orbital bombardment weapons. If ground troops could not secure the area quickly, he would simply destroy the entire mountain and everyone in it. But deep beneath the planet's surface, ancient systems that had slept for millions of years were finally beginning to stir. The Coalition bombardment turned the mountainside into a hellscape of fire and falling rocks. Energy blasts carved deep craters in the ancient stone, while Kethvar warriors fought desperately from every cave and crevice they could find. Hyunwoo pressed himself against a crystal formation as another explosion shook the mountain. Beside him, Torval and Veltar returned fire with their energy spears, but their weapons barely scratched the Coalition soldiers' armor. "We can't win like this," Hyunwoo shouted over the noise of battle. "We need better tactics." Through hand, signals, and broken words, he began organizing the Kethvar defenders. His military training showed him weaknesses in the Coalition advance that the alien warriors could exploit. Small groups of Kethvar began flanking enemy positions instead of charging directly at them. Meanwhile, So Young worked frantically with the damaged communication device deep in the caves. The crystal formations were amplifying its signal, but she needed more power. "The planetary energy grid," she muttered, connecting wires to the largest crystal she could find. "If I can tap into that." The moment she made the connection, the crystal blazed with brilliant light. Energy flowed through the cave system like water through pipes. Her communication device suddenly had more power than it was designed to handle. "Mayday, mayday," she broadcast on all human frequencies. "This is Dr. So Young Park on Kepler 442c. Human survivors under attack by Coalition forces. We have found allies among the native species. Repeat, the natives are helping us fight the Coalition." Above ground, the battle was taking a grim turn. Coalition reinforcements were landing faster than the Kethvar could drive them back. General Thexmore's troops had superior numbers and weapons. Worse, they showed no mercy to wounded enemies. Corden found Hyunwoo during a brief pause in the fighting. The Huntmaster's armor was cracked, and dark blood seeped from several wounds, but his eyes still burned with determination. "He says the young ones want to retreat deeper into the caves," Veltar translated. "But the elders refuse to abandon their home." "Tell him we don't have to choose," Hyunwoo replied. "The caves are our advantage, but only if we use them correctly." He quickly outlined a plan that would turn the mountain settlement into a trap. The Kethvar would appear to retreat, drawing Coalition forces deeper into the cave system. Then they would collapse key passages, splitting the enemy into small groups that could be defeated separately. Corden listened carefully to the translation, then gave a series of rapid orders. Kethvar warriors began falling back in what looked like panicked retreat. The Coalition soldiers, eager to finish the fight, followed them into the winding passages. But as they entered the caves, strange things began to happen. The crystal formations grew brighter, humming with energy that made the soldiers' equipment malfunction. Communications cut out. Weapons systems failed. Some troopers reported seeing things that could not be there. shapes that moved through solid rock, whispers in languages they had never heard. The planet is fighting back, So Young realized as she monitored the energy readings. The crystals are connected to some kind of planetary consciousness. Our battle is waking it up. Deep beneath the mountain, in caverns that had been sealed, for millions of years something vast and ancient began to stir. The first memory, as it would later call itself, had been sleeping since before the Kethvar evolved. But the violence above was causing it to dream, and its dreams were affecting reality. Coalition soldiers found themselves lost in passages that seemed to change when they were not looking. Equipment disappeared or moved to different locations. Some troops reported that their own reflections in the crystal walls were moving independently. General Thexmore watched the confusion with growing anger. His elite forces were being defeated by primitives and ghosts. He ordered the orbital bombardment to begin. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "the energy readings from the planet are interfering with our targeting systems. We cannot guarantee accurate strikes." "I don't care about accuracy," the general snarled. "I want that mountain reduced to ash. Fire everything we have." The bombardment from space turned day into night as massive energy beams struck the planet's surface. But instead of destroying the mountain, something impossible happened. The beams were absorbed by the crystal formations and redirected harmlessly into space. In the deep caves, So Young stared at her instruments in amazement. "Dad, you need to see this. The entire planet is one massive energy network. It's protecting itself." The first memory was now fully awake, and it was angry. For eons, it had shaped this world into a perfect balance of life and crystal. Now invaders from the sky were trying to destroy everything it had created. The planet's response was swift and decisive. Earthshaker worms burst from the ground beneath coalition landing zones, swallowing entire ships. The night wraiths appeared, in broad daylight, passing through armor and weapons to drain the life from enemy soldiers. Even the predatory plants began moving toward the invaders, launching clouds of poisonous darts. But the most dramatic change came in the Kethvar themselves. As they fought alongside the awakening planet, their natural abilities were enhanced. They moved faster, hit harder, and seemed to know where their enemies would be before the enemies themselves knew it. "The planet is sharing its knowledge with them," So Young explained to her father. "It's treating the Kethvar as part of its immune system." The coalition forces, caught between angry natives and a hostile planet, began falling back to their ships. But General Thexmore was not finished yet. He had one weapon left that could destroy the entire world if necessary. "Prepare the planet, Cracker," he ordered his crew. "If we cannot claim this world, we will ensure no one else can use it." The massive weapon began charging, drawing power from the coalition fleet's combined reactors. In 15 minutes, it would fire a beam that could split a planet's core and turn the whole world into an expanding cloud of debris. But So Young's enhanced communication system was picking up more than just human distress calls. She was receiving signals from across the galaxy, other worlds where similar awakenings were taking place. "Dad, listen to this," she said, playing back some of the transmissions. "Planets everywhere are responding to what's happening here. The Coalition has been destroying worlds with planetary consciousnesses for centuries. Now they're all waking up at once." The realization hit Hyunwoo like a physical blow. "We're not just fighting for this planet. We're part of something bigger." Above ground, Corden and his warriors had driven the remaining coalition troops back to their landing site. But the Kethvar Huntmaster was experienced enough to recognize a retreating enemy's last desperate move. "Skyfire," Veltar translated his clicking words. "Very big Skyfire comes soon." Hyunwoo understood immediately. The coalition was preparing to destroy the planet rather than lose it. There was only one way to stop them. "We have to take out their command ship," he told Cordine through Veltar. "It's the only way to save your world." Cordine's response was immediate. He began calling in warriors from across the mountain region. If the Sky-Fallen Ones needed to reach the enemy ships, the Kethvar would find a way. The solution came from an unexpected source. The awakened planetary consciousness had been observing the battle and learning about the invaders. Through the crystal network, it offered its own suggestion. "The planet can launch us," So Young said, hardly believing her own words. "The crystal formations can store and release massive amounts of energy, like a giant catapult." It was insane, dangerous, and probably impossible, but it was also their only chance. Working together, Kethvar engineers and human ingenuity created a launch platform using the largest crystal formation on the mountainside. The first memory channeled energy through the network, building power, for a single massive release. "This is either going to save the galaxy or kill us all," Hyunwoo muttered as he strapped himself into the makeshift projectile pod that So Young had designed. "Both, probably," his daughter replied, checking her calculations one last time. Corden, Veltar, and 20 other Kethvar volunteers joined them in the pod. They would have one chance to reach the Coalition command ship and stop the planet. "Cracker from firing. Launch in 10 seconds, So Young announced. As the countdown reached 0, the mountain itself seemed to explode. The crystal formation released all its stored energy at once, hurling the pod into space with enough force to reach the Coalition fleet. Inside the pod, Hyunwoo felt like every bone in his body was breaking. Beside him, the Kethvar warriors made sounds he had never heard before. But they were all still alive as they crashed through the command ship's hull. The final battle was about to begin. The command ship's alarm screamed as the improvised pod tore through 3 decks before finally crashing into the main corridor. Emergency lights bathed everything in red as Coalition soldiers rushed toward the breach. Hyunwoo rolled out of the twisted wreckage, his body aching from the violent launch. Around him, Kethvar warriors were already moving, their enhanced abilities allowing them to adapt quickly to the artificial gravity and recycled air of the ship. "The bridge is that way," So Young said, checking the readings on her scanner. "But we have to go through half the ship to reach it, and we have maybe 10 minutes before they fire the planet cracker," Hyunwoo added, looking at the countdown display visible through a nearby window. The Coalition soldiers who reached them first had never fought Kethvar before. They expected alien primitives with simple weapons. Instead, they faced warriors who moved like liquid lightning, their energy spears cutting through advanced armor as if it were paper. Corden led the charge down the main corridor, his 4 legs carrying him, faster than any human could run. Behind him, Veltar and the other warriors spread out in formation, using tactics that combined their traditional fighting styles with lessons learned from watching human military procedures. But it was So Young who found their real advantage. As they fought their way deeper into the ship, she noticed that the Coalition technology was similar to systems she had studied on Earth. "Their computers use quantum encryption," she shouted over the noise of battle. "If I can access a terminal, I might be able to disrupt their weapon systems." "Do it," Hyunwoo ordered. "We'll hold them off." The next few minutes were the longest of their lives. Human military training and Kethvar warrior skills combined in ways that confused and terrified the Coalition defenders. Hyunwoo used his knowledge of ship layouts to predict enemy movements. The Kethvar used their enhanced reflexes to turn Coalition weapons against their owners. Meanwhile, So Young worked frantically at a computer terminal, her fingers flying, across controls designed for alien hands. The quantum encryption was complex, but she had advantages the Coalition had not expected. The planetary consciousness was somehow helping her, its vast intelligence providing insights that no single mind could have achieved. "I'm in," she announced. "But the planet cracker is on a separate system. I can't shut it down from here." "Then, we go to the bridge," Hyunwoo said simply. The final approach to the command center was a nightmare of defensive positions and automated weapons. Coalition forces had withdrawn to the most defensible part of their ship, confident that no boarding party could break through their prepared positions. They had not planned for enemies who could learn and adapt in real time. The Kethvar studied each defense for only seconds before finding ways to overcome it. When energy barriers blocked their path, they found ways to redirect the power. When automated guns targeted them, they used the ship's own structure as cover and approached from unexpected angles. General Thexmore watched their advance with growing disbelief. His elite forces were being systematically defeated by a handful of primitives and refugees. It was impossible, but it was happening. "Sir," The boarding party has reached Deck 3, his aide reported. They will be at the bridge in 2 minutes. The general looked at the countdown timer. 3 minutes until the planet cracker fired. Activate all security protocols, he ordered. Seal the bridge and prepare to fire early. But as the massive blast doors began to close, Corden reached them first. The Huntmaster wedged his energy spear into the gap and called for help from his warriors. Together, they forced the doors open through sheer determination and enhanced strength. The Coalition bridge crew drew their weapons as the boarding party burst into the command center, but the fight was brief and one-sided. These aliens were technicians and officers, not warriors. They surrendered quickly when faced with Kethvar spears and human tactical knowledge. Only General Thexmore refused to yield. He stood beside the planet cracker controls, his hand hovering over the manual firing switch. "You cannot stop the Coalition," he snarled. "We have destroyed 100 worlds. We will destroy 100 more." "Not today," Hyun-woo replied, raising his captured energy rifle, but it was So Young who acted first. Instead of shooting the general, she lunged for the computer console. Her enhanced connection to the planetary network allowed her to understand the alien technology at a glance. "The planet cracker isn't just a weapon," she said, her eyes wide with sudden understanding. "It's a communication device. The Coalition has been using it to sever the connections between planetary consciousnesses." Her fingers moved across the controls, not to shut down the weapon but to reverse its function. Instead of destroying connections, it would strengthen them. "What are you doing?" General Thexmore demanded. "Waking up the galaxy," So Young replied. The planet cracker fired, but instead of destroying Kepler 442c, it sent a signal of awakening across the stars. On world after world, ancient consciousnesses that had been sleeping or suppressed began to stir. The Coalition's victims were remembering who they used to be. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ships throughout the Coalition fleet suddenly found their systems failing as the very metals in their hulls began to rebel. Planets that had been strip-mined and enslaved started fighting back with geological weapons the Coalition could not understand. On the command ship's main screen, reports poured in from across the Empire. Rebellions were breaking out on dozens of worlds. Colonial governors were losing contact with their superiors. The carefully maintained order that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was collapsing. General Thexmore stared at the chaos with horror. "You have doomed the galaxy to war." "No," Hyun-woo replied. "We've given it a chance at freedom." The Coalition fleet began retreating from Kepler 442c, their ships damaged by systems that were no longer completely under their control. But the real victory was happening on a galactic scale as world after world threw off the chains of oppression. Back on the planet's surface, the first memory spoke to its new allies through the crystal network. Its voice was like wind through stone, ancient and patient. "For too long we slept while the destroyers burned our children," it said. "No more. You have shown us that some species can be trusted with the power to shape worlds." In the days that followed, human refugee ships began arriving at Kepler 442c, guided by signals that So Young broadcast through the planetary network. They found not just a refuge, but a new kind of civilization where humans and Kethvar worked together as equals. Corden and his warriors became the planet's defenders, their enhanced abilities making them nearly unstoppable against any remaining Coalition forces. Veltar took on the role of cultural ambassador, helping the two species learn from each other. But it was the partnership between Hyun-woo and So Young that became the model for this new world. The father's military experience and tactical knowledge, combined with his daughter's scientific brilliance and compassionate nature, created a leadership style that inspired both species. "We're not just survivors anymore," So Young said as they stood on the observation deck of their new settlement. Below them, human children played alongside young Kethvar in gardens that bloomed with both earth flowers and alien crystals. "No," Hyun-woo agreed, watching Coalition ships flee toward the outer rim of the galaxy. "We're the beginning of something new." The twin suns of Kepler 442c set behind them, painting the sky in shades of hope. Across the galaxy, other worlds were learning the lesson that this planet had taught, that the universe belonged to all thinking beings, not just the strongest or most ruthless. Humanity had found more than a refuge among the stars. They had found their purpose as teachers and allies, showing other species that cooperation could triumph over conquest. It was the ultimate expression of what made humans special, not their ability to fight, but their ability to inspire others to be better than they ever thought possible. In the crystal caves below, the first memory sang with voices that had been silent for millions of years. The galaxy was waking up, and the age of the coalition was ending. The age of cooperation had begun,